Hey everyone, and welcome. Today, we are going to dive into a piece of German grammar that is absolutely essential for building more complex, natural-sounding sentences. We're talking about how to connect two verbs and the one tiny word that acts as the perfect little bridge between them. So, let's see how it's done.
So, have you ever found yourself in this exact spot? You're trying to translate a phrase like this, you've got your first verb down, I try, but then what on earth do you do with that second part? To learn. It's a really common hurdle. But trust me, the German way of doing it is actually pretty cool.
Okay, look at this side by side. It tells you almost everything you need to know. In English, we use to. In German, you can see they use zu. But the real game changer here is the word order. Look at how to learning gets launched all the way to the very end of the sentence. That is the secret sauce we're going to master today.
So let's break this whole thing down into a super simple, repeatable blueprint. I want you to think of this as the basic recipe you can just use again and again to make your German sound way more advanced.
Here it is, the core structure. It looks a little technical, but it's not, I promise. You start with your main sentence, your main clause. You add a comma, and then, and this is the most important part, at the very, very end of the entire sentence, you stick your zu plus the infinitive, the basic to-do form of the verb. The number one rule, this zu phrase always goes to the end.
Let's make it even easier. Just 3 simple steps. First, you say your main thing, like, I'm trying, or it's good. Step 2, you just pop in a little comma. And for step 3, you take that second action, like to learn German, and you send it right to the finish line as Deutsch zu lernen. That's it. It's that simple. Okay, so you might be asking, how do I know when I'm supposed to use this structure? And that's a great question. You don't just throw it in anywhere. Your main clause has to have what I call a trigger. Let's look at the 3 main types of triggers you can learn to spot. So the first and by far the most common trigger is the verb you're using in your main sentence. If you're using a verb that expresses an intention, a plan, a hope, or an attempt, well, that sentence is practically begging for a to clause to finish the thought and explain what you're trying to do. And here are some of those key trigger verbs. You'll see these all the time. Words like versuchen, for to try, hoffen, for to hope, and haben, for to plan. As soon as you use one of these, a little light should go off in your head, telling you to get ready to put a to plus infinitive at the end of your sentence.
Let's see it in a real sentence. Wir hoffen, that's our main clause, and we've got our trigger verb, hoffen. But we hope what? The sentence feels incomplete, right? The to clause finishes it, cricket zu spielen. See how perfectly that completes the idea and it's right there at the end?
All right, on to our second trigger. This time, it's not a single verb. It's often a whole phrase built around an adjective, usually starting with es ist, which just means it is. So you get phrases like, it is important, it is good, or it is difficult. For instance, if you say, es ist gut, it is good, well, okay, but good to do what? The sentence is just hanging there. The zu clause comes in to save the day and provide that missing information, es ist viel Wasser zu trinken. Ah, that's what's good. And our third trigger works in a very similar way. It's all about noun phrases. Expressions like Zeit haben, to have time, or Lust haben, to feel like doing something. These also need a zu clause to tell us what the action is. Here's a perfect example. Ich habe keine Zeit. I have no time. Time for what? Time anzurufen. Now, I want you to look very, very closely at that last word, anzurufen. It looks a little weird, right? This is actually a special case, and it's our gateway to the really pro-level stuff.
All right, you ready? Let's level up. German loves its separable prefix verbs, and they add a really fun little twist to our zu rule. But don't worry, once you see the logic, it's going to click right into place.
So let's stick with our example verb, anrufen, which means to call. It's made of 2 parts. You've got the prefix an and the main verb stem, rufen. Now, in a normal sentence, that little prefix un would split off and go all the way to the end. So the big question is, when we have to add zu, where in the world does it go? And here is the genius German solution. The zu doesn't go at the beginning. It slots right into the middle, like the filling in a sandwich, right between the prefix and the verb. And then it all fuses together into one single word. So un, then zu, then rufen, squishes together to become anzurufen. Okay, now that you've totally mastered the basic to structure, let's look at a powerful upgrade. Sometimes you don't just want to link 2 actions. You want to explain the purpose of the first action. And to do that, we use a special combo.
zu.
So here's the difference in a nutshell. Standard zu just links two things. I tried to learn. But zu explains why. It answers the question for what purpose. Think of it as the German way of saying in order to. I learn in order to work. It's all about the why. Let's look at a clear example. Spart Geld. He is saving money. Why? What's the purpose? The answer is ein Auto zu kaufen, in order to buy a car. And notice the structure. The shows up right after the comma, but our old friend zu kaufen still follows the main rule and goes all the way to the end.
Okay, we have covered a lot of ground. The main rule, the three triggers, the separable verbs, and the purpose upgrade. Before we wrap up, let's do a quick final check on the most common mistakes so you know exactly what to avoid. And then we'll do a little practice.
These are the big four traps. Just forgetting to put zu in there at all. Putting the zu phrase somewhere in the middle instead of at the very end. Messing up those separable verbs by writing zu anrufen as two words. And this last one is huge. Trying to use zu with modal verbs like can or must. You never, ever do that. Just keep these in mind.
All right, time for a pop quiz. Let's put this into practice. You've got two ideas. Hast du Zeit? Do you have time? And du kommst mit. You're coming along. The verb we need to use is mitkommen, which, yep, is a separable verb. So, how would you put those two together?
And that's it. Hast du Zeit mitzukommen? The zu slips right in between mit and kommen. You got it, right? Perfect.
Okay, last one. He's learning vocabulary and he passes the exam. We want to connect these to show that the first action is being done for the purpose of the second action. So, which structure do we need to pull out of our toolbox here?
Exactly. Because we're explaining the why, we need our zu combo. Lernt Vokabeln, die Prüfung zu bestehen. He's learning vocabulary in order to pass the test. Fantastic job. So there you have it. You now have the complete blueprint for linking your ideas, explaining your purpose, and building sentences that sound so much more fluent and sophisticated in German. So, the only question left is, what are you going to try to say first? Thanks for sticking with me on this one.